Coach Kathleen here with Phoenix Rising. Have you ever heard the term generational curse? So, when my daughter was younger, she was probably late middle school, maybe early high school. I had done, actually, it was a Bible study about generational sin. And so, one of the things that challenged me to do was talk to my family and find out if there are things that I do that they feel damage our relationship or were hurtful to them or cause some kind of wounds for them. And this is kind of the first time that this type of thing really came to my attention, or I'd heard about something like this. And I was, I think it was early on as a single parent. I think it was just after the divorce. It might have been, I can't remember if my ex-husband was still around. But anywho, I wanted to approach her. But I really wanted to think about this because I came from a family, a dysfunctional family, as many of you have known or have heard me say. And there was a lot of yelling. My dad was a yeller. My mom was a yeller. There was a lot of yelling and verbal tearing down and just not being very nice to each other and saying things were hurtful and just rude. And just, it was a very angry household, I guess I could say. So I approached my daughter and I said, hey, I want you to be completely honest with me and tell me what I do. Just give me one thing that I do that you feel is really hurtful to you, that you feel damages our relationship. And I could see in her face that she did not trust me. She did not believe me. She was fearful. So I had to do a lot of reassuring her, and telling her, no, I promise you, I'm not going to be upset. I really want us to have a deeper, better relationship, a healthier relationship. I recognize that because of my background, I did a lot of that yelling and stuff too. And the way I talked to her was indicative of what I had learned in my household. And I was recognizing the dysfunction and that something needed to change. So I sat down with her and she said, Mom, when you're angry with me and you yell at me, your whole face changes. Your demeanor changes. And she goes, you look at me like you hate me. And my heart broke. In that moment, my heart broke. To think that my own child would ever think in her mind that I hated her. Because the rage on my face showed her that I had no regard for her in that moment, that it felt to her like she was not loved, that she was rejected, that I had hate for her, and that just broke my heart. So I had to go away and really think about this and give some prayer over this and think, what can I do to heal this? How do I fix this? This is what I grew up with. I don't know how to be different. So I went back down and we talked about it, and I said, okay, let's do this. Let's come up with a safe word, okay? A word that you can use when you feel like I'm starting to gear up, get keyed up to where I'm going to start to rage at you like that. Because I may not be able to catch it myself, but I want us to come up with a word. And you know what's so weird is to this day, I can't remember what that word is. I do not remember what it was, but there was a word. And she said, okay, if I use this word, will you stop? Will you stop, stop yourself from raging at me? And I thought about it. I thought, if I tell her yes, I have to follow through, because if I don't, that will just do more damage and it will just hurt her more. And we may never be able to repair this. So I have to really be ready and willing to stop myself, to check my anger. So I said, you know what? I will do this. I prayed on that. I said, Lord, you've got to give me the wherewithal in my mind and my brain that if she says this word, that I am going to really rein myself in and just shut my mouth and walk away. And because I knew the anger that I had, the anger issues that I had, stemmed from my mom and my dad on both sides with the anger. It was expressed differently. My dad was the one who raged. My mom was more of the depressant person, anxiety, but she still would yell a lot. And so anywho, I said, yes, I will do that. So lo and behold, going through life, and I could see that she didn't truly trust me or believe me. So we, continued on. And then one day, I don't remember what it even was, but I started to feel myself, I got this. When I was younger, I always felt like I had kind of this hot lava in my gut. Like there's just always this anger and this rage simmering under the surface that I had never really dealt with or addressed. So when I started to feel myself really get worked up, I wasn't even thinking about our agreement with my daughter. And then she said that safe word. And in that split second, I thought, do I want to change or don't I? If I do, I have to respond right now. So I just shut my mouth and I walked away. I went up to my room and I just breathed, did some breathing exercise, calmed myself down, prayed about it. I couldn't even talk about it then because I was so angry. And angry about things that are so ridiculous for a parent to be angry about my child, my preteen or my early young teen, just being a preteen, early young teen person, just doing something that normally a healthy, functional parent would never even have been enraged over or respond to. And that's going to be another video for another day about how a codependent parent really expects perfection from their children because they feel like that's a reflection of them and everything has to be perfect. But that's another tape. That's another video. So anywho, I finally went back downstairs and I talked to her and she said, I didn't really think that you would do it. I didn't think you could stop doing that. And so I went down and I said, okay, let's talk about this. Let's figure this out. And one of the things she said to me, she said, Mom, why do you get so upset over things that you could just talk to me in a normal tone of voice? So like, for instance, just this is a dumb example, but it's one that just came to my head, is my ex-husband used to always come in the house, take off his socks and shoes and just throw them there on the floor by the door and they would just stay there. And so she started doing the same thing and it would make me crazy. She would just drop her backpack, if he dropped his suitcase or his briefcase or whatever, it would just be stuff all over cluttering up, the living room. And it would drive me crazy. I wanted them to put it away or put it in their room or whatever. And so anywho, she said, Mom, if my socks are there, can't you just say, hey, Abby, can you take your socks and put them in your room or put them in the hamper? In a normal tone of voice. If you would just ask me, I would do that. Why do you have to scream at me? And I thought, oh my gosh, she's absolutely right. These are things a normal, functional, healthy adult parent would not get so upset about and would not feel like it threatened the very thread of my society, And so I thought, well, that's such a good point. Why am I even this upset about it? So I thought I need to really explore this. But these are some generational curses, generational sins that pass down from the parents. And if you don't become aware of those things, if something doesn't trigger you to think, maybe this isn't normal, this might be something that I need to address in myself. I need to break it. I need to break that generational curse. And so I determined then that I was going to change and that I wasn't going to continue to do that. So we did this. We did this using her safe word. And it got to where I would start to catch myself when I would start feeling like in my gut that I was starting to get, build up to this, rage. I would check myself and I would think, okay, is this really something worth flying off the handle over? Or can I bring this down a notch and just say, hey, this bothers me, or please don't do that, or why would you do that, or help me understand your thought process, something that's more relational that would keep that communication between me and her going in a positive way. So I began to learn those things. And then what was so funny was, I don't know, it was probably a good 18 months later, maybe even close to 2 years later, when she said to me one day, we're driving in the car, and she goes, you know what, Mom? Because you haven't yelled in a long time. And I was so excited because I broke that curse. I learned a different path. I learned how to do something different. So I reprogrammed those neural pathways in my brain that said when the slightest thing upsets me or triggers me, I should just rage about it. So I began to realized that I was coming up with different, more healthy ways for me to communicate with her and talk with her. And it was really changing our relationship. And I was really excited about that. So I just challenge everyone to be aware of those generational curses that you can pass on to your children. Just because you were raised in a household that did that, just because you learned that in your home, doesn't make you less responsible for your current relationships. You are responsible for changing yourself. Become more aware of what you're saying, when you're saying it, how you're saying it, and why you're saying it. So I'll do another video later about why the appearance of perfection is so important to codependence. But that is how we began to identify, address, and then break those generational curses. So it is possible. And I encourage you to make that effort. It is so worth it. Our relationship is so much better than it ever was once I began to start to combat those generational issues.